Did I manifest a Dogman? Dear Scary Stories NYC, I appreciate how many stories you use from people my age or even older, as it allows me some nostalgia, along with the stories about Dogman. My contribution today should have plenty of both nostalgia and Dogman, as it's about my single Dogman experience way back in the mid-1970s. It was not in a location which is known for Dogman these days, and there was no location known for Dogman back then. I don't think I even heard the term Dogman until this century, or at least the 1990s. Back in the 70s, we had Bigfoot, the abominable snowman, and Nessie. Then, there were ghosts, aliens, local lake monster versions of Nessie, and the second tier of monsters like the Pukwudgie or the Snallygaster. I never heard stories of real-life werewolves when I was growing up, but then again, I am neither from New Orleans nor the Midwest. No, I grew up in New York City, and by 1973, I was managing a country rock band centered in Colorado. By 1977, I was bankrupt, but in 73 and 74, we were all still flying pretty high. We got 2 separate record deals, both of which fell through, but we got paid both times. So, we weren't famous at all, but we were living off of bonuses and advances, the money that successful bands spent on the production of their albums. If we had been smart, we'd have made an LP on our own and had something to shop around. But instead, we spent that money on 70s things like fancy cars and this strange expensive white powder that felt like pop rocks when you put it on the tip of your tongue. Another thing we spent our money on back then was vacations and retreats. It was while I was on a retreat, in fact, that I had my face-to-face encounter with the Dogman. This particular retreat claimed to be teaching us a very ancient set of theories and practices, but here in the 21st century, I found no ancient traditions resembling the things they put us through. I have a feeling those traditions were born, lived, and died all in the 1970s, so don't bother trying any of this at home. One of the aspects of this place which I found interesting were the raised wooden platforms. They were square floors up 18 or 20 feet in the air, with ladders to climb up and down on the eastern and western sides. I saw them in use as I arrived, so I instantly understood their purpose. I watched as people performed maneuvers that looked to me like a mix between yoga and karate, I guess, up on top of those platforms. Little did I realize I would have my chance up on top of one of those pedestals soon enough. The people there taught us these different physical meditation techniques that involved moving into different positions, one after the other, each of which is facing in a different cardinal direction, and each of which is meant to imbue a different meaning or quality to the experience of your life. Once you've learned it, then you have to perform it blindfolded. Once you learn how to do that, then you perform it blindfolded on top of one of the platforms, which were all just exactly the size it took for an average-sized human to perform these routines. Longer-legged individuals might even have to shorten their stride a bit to fit the maneuvers all onto that one small platform. We each were taught different physical routines, just as we were each given a different mantra, and we were instructed to perform these meditation practices until we experienced a breakthrough, or until we needed to call on one of the elders for help. So, on that one early morning, just as the sun was in the beginning of rising in the still darkened skies, I found myself up on top of one of those platforms for the first time. I had gotten up early that morning because I wanted to try to perform my routine up there a few times without the blindfold before trying it without being able to see. I noticed that the floorboards felt subtly different under my feet in different places, and I could feel a slight lip at the very edge. If I remained conscious of these minor differences in the pedestal itself, then I would feel much more sure of myself once that blindfold went on. I really did want to accomplish this challenge, but I've always had a fear of heights going back to my childhood. Besides, falling blindfolded from a height of 18 or 20 feet can be disastrous. You might snap your neck. Of course, you might escape with minor injuries too, but I was so nervous about heights that I'd probably tense up and hurt myself worse if I fell. The object for me was to make sure I didn't fall, and so I practiced and practiced as the sun creeped over the horizon. I wanted to be done with my practice before anyone else needed the platform for their own use. I wanted to get this done before the day officially began. I realized I was running out of time, and I had left my blindfold down on the ground with my other things. I decided to just perform the entire routine 3 times in a row with my eyes shut. If I could do that, then I could relax and go into the day confident that I had everything under control. There was a part of the yoga or meditation or kung fu or whatever I was doing where I had to pause facing the east to thank the sun, bringer of life. It's the longest bit of facing in one direction in the entire routine. So, as I was performing it with my eyes shut, and I turned toward the east, at first I got the sense that everything went dark. The first rays of the sun were suddenly darkened, and yet I didn't feel coldness coming from the direction of the darkness. That was one warm darkness. There was an odor associated with it that seemed both familiar and yet alien at once. It was a terrible smell, yet so similar to something I'd smelled before. My mind spun as I tried to remember what the odor was that I was smelling, and then I heard it make a sound like huff. The darkness was breathing. The warm, bad-smelling darkness was alive. I reached out both my hands and touched the hot, hairy skin. Opening my eyes in shock, I saw a man's chest in front of my face. Looking up, I saw a wolf's head looking down at me. What has a man's chest and a wolf's head? Something that I was unprepared to see, that's what. I stared at its eyes, which were glowing like fireflies, or lightning bugs, or whatever you call them wherever you are. It was an orange or amber color glow, though. Not that greenish sort of glow that fireflies have. I never saw pupils in those eyes, only that glowing light. I would even say that the creature might have been a robot of some sort, except this would have had to have been one warm-blooded machine with some extra bad body odor. I didn't know machines could get body odor, so I'm thinking that it had to have been a real biological creature. But the glowing eyes sure made it look like something that was unreal. So there was that moment that I stood there, stunned, feeling it radiating body warmth from a foot in front of me, smelling its musky, wet dog odor, wondering how it got there. And then that moment was terminated by the creature screaming in my face. I don't know if you'd say I was barked at or bellowed at, but call it what you wish. I was surprised by this unexpected loud and aggressive behavior. I lost my footing and fell backward off of the platform, waking up in a bed in some infirmary or something hours later. I didn't have any truly bad injuries, but I was laid up for days, and my vacation had been ruined by this werewolf. When I asked around about the large bipedal wolf, however, people would just laugh at me. While I was bedridden, they assumed it was the drugs that were talking about werewolves. I thought that was some kind of local animal or something. I knew I couldn't have been the first one to see that thing, but I could tell by their expressions that I was making people think I was insane Each time I brought up the subject of the 10-foot tall upright walking wolf with the broad man's chest. I ask you, what about that sounds crazy? Well, in the mid-70s in Colorado, that sounded the craziest, and they offered to give me my money back if I would please just leave. I kind of assumed they must be right. I must be crazy. After all, I worked in a crazy business known for driving people bonkers. Maybe I just tripped over the edge for a while. Maybe I manufactured the Dogman out of my own imagination. But by the late 1990s, when I started to read about the Wisconsin werewolf and the Dogman of Michigan, I started to wonder if that might have been the animal I'd seen. Or conversely, if what people are seeing in the Midwest might really be a kind of Jungian or subconscious archetype. Now, for those of you younger than me to interpret this story, and I imagine that would be nearly all of you since I just turned 77, you might need a bit of background information on me and the culture back then. I personally wonder how much of this took place in my own mind, so you may feel free to wonder similar things without offending me. But you should know that I was raised in a time and an environment where Eastern mysticism was held in great awe and respect by our culture. I'm not saying the elites held it in high regard, but the popular culture certainly did. One of the great radio heroes and the pulp magazines in my younger childhood was called The Shadow, and he had the power to become invisible by instantly hypnotizing everyone in the room to think they couldn't see him. Where did the Shadow go to learn to do this? Why, he went to the East. He studied yoga. He studied under yogis. None of us here in the West really knew what that meant back then, so the writers of the time were allowed to make it mean whatever worked for their stories. So the young adult version of me, full of ego and self-love, not to mention the various exotic chemicals of the day, performing yoga on top of that platform, I'm thinking I was detaching from my ego, having been trained from birth to expect magic to result from yogic practices, may have caused the Dogman to manifest by myself. It may even have been a physical manifestation of my own ego for all I know. I mean, I was trying to kill off my ego. It may have been manifesting as something big and scary, to fight back, for the sake of its own survival. You know, I don't really know how any of that stuff works. I only understand my job, and I understand very little else about life. Obviously, another possibility is that this was a real animal, and it climbed up the ramp while my eyes were shut. Maybe it was just curious, or annoyed by my activity, and it came up the ladder to bully me because it was a jerk. Maybe it was only there randomly. Maybe it was an indigenous animal living in the region undiscovered by man, and it liked to use that level surface to gaze off in the distance for whatever reason an upright walking canid might have for gazing off into the distance. Hey, maybe I was just in its way. I don't suppose I'll ever see that creature again, or any other Dogman for that matter. There are so many reasons I wish I had it on video and I could do an instant replay to study what actually happened. Did the creature climb the ladder to be on that platform in front of me? Or else, did I manifest a Dogman? We like Mary and all that jazz. She likes it scary. She's Mary Shabazz. Please join us in thanking tonight's executive producer, Mary Shabazz, for making this episode possible. Mary gets to see our secret, uncensored weekly stories, which are far too wild to tell on this channel. She also gets other perks, like watching one show per week in advance of the general public. You can get these and other perks too. And here's international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman to explain all the deeds. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com, and that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.